This is the P07, a well-priced double-action, single-action, hammer-fired handgun that has a lot of good features, but is also missing a few features out the box. The original owner of this handgun put quite a few dollars into making it exactly how he wanted. And when I say quite a few dollars, the question is $2,000 on a $350 base gun, are we doing too much? Is that appropriate? Should we spend that much money making a gun perfect? And after spending that money, is this gun perfect? Let's dig deep into it and see if this price is justified in performance, or if we even need to. Is it justified in some other way? And here's my YouTube disclaimer before I give you the breakdown, but I'm not telling you these prices so you can go out and buy anything. We're not selling any guns. We're not selling any parts. This is strictly for educational purposes. I'm letting you know what went into this overall experience. Why is this gun priced at over $2,000 after everything's said and done? So let's talk about it. The base gun is a used P07 Gen 2. That's about $350. The upgrades include the Cajun Gunworks Pro Trigger Kit. That was about $227. CZ Custom Shop Flat Trigger Shoe, about $40. Battle Ready Arms Stippling. This was the Dragon Scale, and that was about $340. Primary Machine Match Barrel is the non-threaded version. That is $260. Spring Co. RMS Guide Rod and Spring Kit, about $85. The Streamlight TLR7, $158 or so. And the Holosun 509T Gen 1, that was $300 with a military discount. So if you did the math in your head, you're probably saying, that's not quite $2,000. It's a little closer to $1,800, more or less. But here's the thing. There was one thing that happened that we should probably talk about. A little bit of drama with the original owner and sending his gun off to get fixed. And so, trigger warning, no pun intended, there's some things that may upset you as you hear this tale. This is the story as it was explained to me. So if there's any inconsistencies, we are playing telephone, right? So the original owner, and he's actually still in possession of the gun at this time, as far as I know, of the P07 is a gentleman who goes by Scout Concepts on Instagram. You should definitely go give him a follow. Let him know that you either love the gun, or if you maybe want to see some of his other builds, if you maybe want to see some of his other builds, you can check him out. That said, so the P07, it was all coming together. Everything was, getting dialed in, stippled, all that. Everything was working. But here's the biggest step: mounting the optic. He sent his slide into C&H Precision for millings. Everybody knows C&H. They're known for their plates. Apparently, they do a great job in that department. But for some reason, this day, things did not go as planned. This is probably everyone's biggest fear when sending off their slide to get milled. This is a one and done thing. If you get it right, it gets right. If you don't, well, then you're screwed. It was sent in for a direct mill for the Holosun 509T. So he sent in the slide. They assured him that they can get it done. Weeks are going by, no updates, which is not entirely uncommon when we're talking about companies that are working on multiple projects with lead times, small teams. Does reach out on a few different occasions. Finally is able to get a hold of somebody, and they're like, okay, yeah, yours is actually next. It gets done, it comes back, and finally, after an eternity, he opens the package, excited to see the work, and he can't believe his eyes. The optic is sitting kind of high, and it's misaligned. It's uneven. It's not going to work. So unfortunately, something in that process went wrong, and it was unusable. Scout, as you can imagine at this time, he's trying to figure out what the heck he's supposed to do. He's paid all this money to get it done. What's he supposed to do? So he says, you know what? I'm not going to worry about this particular company anymore. I'm going to figure something else out. Maybe somebody can get this fixed. Reaches out to Scott over at Impact Machine. Apparently, He's worked on plenty of CZ P07s and is very familiar with how to get it done. And he happened to have an extra CZ P07 slide ready to rock and roll. So unfortunately, as much as Scott's probably a great dude and wanted to help Scott out as much as possible, he is running a business, so he did have to sell him the slide, right? And he also had to charge him for the labor. And unfortunately, that did balloon the cost up to over $2,200, I think, at this point. So Scout did have to pay about like $420 to get the slide milled for the new slide, of course, and to have the suppressor height sides moved forward of the Optic. All that altogether cost a pretty penny. And the question is it worth it? Let's get into the performance aspects of this gun. But before we get there, let's talk about something that's pretty important. Your data, your information, and today's sponsor, Aura. So if you're like me, you do spend some time making sure that you and your family are physically safe. Maybe you have some cameras, maybe you carry a gun, but who is checking the dark web for your social security number, the passwords that you use, and your personal sensitive data? Because the banks sure aren't. The amount of times where I've gotten a notification from, cell phone company number 2 or 3 saying, hey, by the way, last year we got hacked and your personal information is now out there. Stuff like that happens all the time. So when Aura reached out and said, hey, can we partner with you to let people know what we've got going on? I thought, hey, it makes sense. And here's the thing. You can try the service, give them 2 weeks to comb the internet, find out where your name is being listed, find out who's selling your data, and they can actually reach out to these people and tell them to stop. They're legally obligated to stop, but they all have different processes. Aura goes through the trouble of understanding each one of those processes and providing the information that they require to get your information removed. They actually continue to purge your data. So once all your information is removed and for some reason they find it somewhere else, they're going back and saying, hey, you got to give it up. At least try out the 2-week free trial, let them comb the web for your information, see what's out there, and of course, let them do the hard work of getting that taken care of for you. All right, guys, back to the show. So let's talk about the heart of this gun, the double action, single action trigger, and how it kind of provides a much different experience than really most guns on the market. Most people are shooting either some sort of single action 2011, 1911, or they're shooting like a striker fire handgun, all the Glocks, the Smith & Wesson M&P, the Shield, things like that. And also going over to, let's say, like the Walther PDP, SIG P320, 365. Those guns all standard where you rack it, the striker gets primed, and then you pull the trigger and the striker is released and sends around downrange. Easy stuff. With this gun, it's very different because there's 2 options. You can literally pull through once the round is chambered. You can decock the gun, and then you'll have that full length and weight of the hammer being pulled back. You can get up to, some of these hammers, they get pretty heavy, like over 10 pounds, right? Or you can get a much crisper, much lighter, much shorter trigger pull when you're in single action mode, where you already have the hammer back, you've racked the gun, the hammer's probably going to be locked to the rear, and you can work from there. You get a much crisper experience. With this gun in particular, it's very crisp, very predictable, and exceedingly accurate at 25 yards and probably beyond, but I really just took the gun up to 25 yards. Why is that important? Because the bad guy can be 25 plus yards away doing the devil's work, and you better stop him before he comes for you or your family. For me, I find it difficult to carry guns that I cannot confidently shoot at that kind of range. So this is definitely in the list of guns that I can definitely carry. I might have said that there's a little bit of a learning curve with the trigger, but as I've shot the gun, in fact, every single time I've shot the gun or let somebody else shoot the gun or took it to an event and let people try the gun for the first time as I had possession of it, no one ever had an issue with it. In fact, the only time that they would think about it is in ghosting the trigger and really, trying it out dry firing the gun. They would notice, I guess there's a little bit of take up, but it was a very crisp, clean break to the rear, and it would go all the way back to the rear. And I think most people were good with that. Now, the trigger did sneak up on people because it's light and it's crisp, and people would kind of start to go all the way back, and it is a nice smooth take up, like ball bearings, like really smooth take up, and then it'll break on you. And if you're not prepared for it to do so, I think it might pick you by surprise. So it's a nice setup. The reset and dry fire is a little bit long, but in reality, it's not that serious. So let me talk about one of the strengths of this gun, and that would be the iron sights being forward of the optic. Some people might see that and wonder, like, oh, is that just so you can rack the gun off of an item? Let's say like a ledge or something, if I'm stuck with a one-handed manipulation. And that's true. The iron sights can support the gun and making sure that the optic's not damaged as you're racking it off surfaces. But it's also good for being able to see that dot in pretty much any head position. So if you're shooting in an unconventional situation, you'll be able to see that red dot where it is, and it's not going to be blocked by the iron sights being behind it. They may block in front, but that's not the big concern. If you're really concerned about that, just get rid of your iron sights, I suppose. Now, one of the other maybe issues that we run into with this gun is the slide is so unique and kind of narrow, but also super low profile. So you can rack it from the front, from the front of the slide. You can kind of position your hand in such a way you can look real tactical doing it and run the slide, or you could even rack it from the optic. You can do that, but it's a little bit harder to get a good grip on the gun. And I could imagine if your hands are slick with any sort of liquid, God forbid, you may have some difficulties racking the slide from the front. You would have to rely on the optic, and depending on the state of your hands, perhaps you don't want to do that. So consider that if you are seeing how the slide is oriented, and if it gives you any sort of cause to pause, you may want to pause. I actually felt that the gun did have quite a bit of flip in it, and maybe that was just me as a shooter, but I did feel that the gun was still a little bit flippy, not out of control, although if you look at the footage at times, it seems like there's a little bit of extra rotation in my wrist as I'm shooting this gun, which could be me, but I did feel like, okay, I can shoot fast, I can shoot on target, which is the important thing, but the gun does kind of go up and down in like a firm handshake. And that's what it was described to me as when I let my friend Simple Carry Life shoot the gun a while back.
You can really feel the recoil, but it's like just a handshake. It's not soft, but it's just like a nice firm handshake. Hello. Yeah, that's it. Right. Give me one.
He said, yeah, it's like a firm handshake. And I was like, that's exactly the way we should describe it. Now, another strength of this gun is the stipple job. It's definitely something that I would recommend if you went and bought a CZ P07 to upgrade. Get it stippled, because the original stipple job is really nothing to write home about, but the dragon scale stippling really lets it lock into your hands and gives you a great overall experience. I highly recommend it. So the big question that a lot of you are going to be asking is like, why would you spend that much money on a gun? I don't know. I didn't spend that money. It was the other guy was Scout, my buddy Scout. But at the end of the day, that's your business. If you want a project gun, do that. Somebody might say, well, you could just get a Shadow 2. You can just go buy that Staccato HD or the Staccato P for $2,000 or $2,500 or however much they're going for these days, right? You could do that, or you can start at a lower price point and build a gun out however you would like to. Because if you start at the higher price point, there's still going to be things about the firearm, if you're a tinkerer, if you're a builder, that you want to change. Some people, they never want to touch the gun, so they're going to buy it out the box how it's supposed to run for them, and they'll run that, and that's fine. But for those who are into modifications and changing things and sending the gun off and really making a gun yours, as in they've never felt more alive, but when they're in the hunt for that perfect build, like this is this is definitely a good option. You know, the Cajun Gun Works, like that's a legendary name. Like to be able to kind of be in that ecosystem of cool things is cool. Now the question is, should you get the P07 Nocturne over this? And I would say maybe if you can get it at a good price and you don't have to get the slide cut, you don't have to do all these things, you could potentially just go and get that gun and build it out the way you want to. If you're a builder, tinkerer, parts guy, or whatever, you could do that. And at that point, you're cooking with gas. Like you've already kind of got a lot of the cost out the way. So maybe that's an option for you. Now, at the end of the day, this is Scout's gun, and my guns are my guns, and your guns are your guns, and we can all kind of make decisions on what we like out of our handguns. And so I hope that as you work on your builds and you can make decisions, and if you get a CZ build and you can decide, hey, do I want to work on the springs or do I want to work on like porting and comping and all that stuff, and really just finding a reputable shop to do that kind of thing. And or if you went with the springs, figuring out what springs kind of get you different feel, different recoil sensation, different amounts of flip, and just stuff like that. So hopefully you find the perfect build for you. And if this video helped you, let me know. We're actually going to be giving away a Holosun 507 comp or competition, and that's going to be attached to the podcast channel. And so if you want to figure out how to win one of these, it's actually super simple. I'm not going to get into all the details, but I will say that if you join our Discord group and or become a member over on the Gun Club Radio YouTube channel, you will pretty much be eligible to win. All you have to do is check out I'll put the link to the Google form down there, and you guys can check it out and make sure to go support the hard work that we do over on the podcast channel. And of course, I hope you enjoy. All right, guys, this has been fun. Peace.